Welcome to Simply Scripting. I'm your host, Dorex Delicioso. In the last episode, we learned how to read a note card, or multiple different note cards, all with the same script. This method works fine for fairly small scripts. When we start getting into longer, more complicated scripts, it would be nice to be able to separate our note card reading logic from the rest of our script. Just to keep things neat and tidy, and make any future maintenance of the script a lot easier. To that end, we're going to be moving our note card reader into a new state. Back in episode 1, I mentioned a bit about states. Well, now we get to use them. Once we get the code written, I'm sure you'll see the benefits of having different states do different discrete tasks for us. Having a state is like having a good friend. You ask him to go and do something for you, and he just does it. No complaining. When using states, a script can react differently to the same inputs. For example, in one state, a touch might open a dialog for us. In another state, it might change the color or position of a cube. So let's start off with a small example of states so we can see how they work and their limitations. I've gone ahead and created the standard cube, and renamed the cube and the script. Just good practices to have. Our default state is just the way we expect it to be. So, now what? First, we're going to make a small change in the touch start event. We're going to rename it to touch end. Linden Labs suggest not using the touch start event for changing states. Since we'll be doing that later, it's just safer to change it now. If you never change state in a touch start, you don't have to worry about this. To create a new state, we just have to add the keyword state, followed by the name we want to call it, plus the opening and closing braces. That's it. We have a new state. Just a couple of things to know about. We can have multiple states in our script, other than the default one. All our custom states have to be declared after the default state. That's it. Easy. All the event handlers that we've used in the default state, we can use in any other state. It works exactly the same as the default state. So, we'll add the state entry event handler to our script. While learning about states, I'm going to add a say debug line to tell us where we are. Saving and trying to test our code now won't do too much. Like all the functions we use, it's not enough to just have the code there, we have to do something to execute it. We'll add a line to the state entry handler in our default state, again, just to tell us where we are. Almost there. So, in the touch end handler, we'll add the say debug, then we'll add the command, state read notecard. That line will cause execution of the script to be passed to our new state. This next part is important. The first thing that happens when a state changes, is the script in the new state's state entry handler, is executed. I'm going to repeat that, pay attention, there's a test later. The first thing that happens when a state changes, is the script in the new state's state entry handler, is executed. So, now, if we save our script and touch the cube, we can watch the sequence of handlers that get executed. Exciting, right? We can see when the script was reset, the default state entry handler was executed. Then, when we touched the cube, the default touch end handler was executed, the say debug was printed, and the next line instructed the script to execute our state notecard reader. Right away the notecard reader state executed the state entry handler, and printed a line for us. Just as we expected. So, a few more tests. We'll add another say debug line in the default state, just after our state notecard reader line. So, we expect it to go touch end, state entry, touch returned. Let's try it. Well, that didn't work, did it? We never got back to the line after the state notecard reader command. In fact, we can't even click the cube any longer. What's happening? Good question. In the touch end event, we told it to execute state notecard reader, and it did. It did exactly what we told it to. Remember, each state works exactly like all other states? Well, our new state is waiting happily for something to happen. It's waiting for an event to happen. Maybe a touch, a collision, anything. So, it just waits, and waits and waits. Patient as a puppy. It will wait forever, or until we tell it to leave this state. Aha, I bet you understand now. We just have to tell the script to exit our new state. But how? You'd think there would be a state exit command, something to instruct the script to exit. I know, I thought that. But no, that wouldn't work. How would it know where to exit to? The line that called it? Maybe, but no. We have to tell it what state to execute. So if we use the command, state notecard reader, to get into this state, the command, state default, should take us out of it. Perfect, we'll add that line right after our say debug. Simple. Save, click, test. Well, that kind of maybe worked, a bit. We did get a line printed after our notecard reader state entry, but it wasn't the one we expected. We were looking for the touch returned line to be printed, and we went to the default state entry again. It looks like it quit executing all the code after issuing the state notecard reader command. That's exactly what it did. Any line of script after a call to a new state is ignored. Discarded, forgotten about, abandoned. Why? Well, we said earlier, the first thing to get executed when a new state is entered is the state entry handler. And that's exactly what happened. As soon as we said state default, it went to the default state entry handler code and executed our say debug line. Now, the cube is in the default state, waiting for an event to happen. This time, however, we have a touch end handler so we can click the cube again. Yup, same thing happens, each and every time we click the cube. So, we learned a lot there. We learned that any code after a change of state command is never executed. If you never learn anything else about states, that's the one important thing to know. Okay, I lied, a bit. You caught me. I said when a new state is called, the first thing to be executed is that state's state entry handler. And that part is true, once it gets to the next state. Before it gets there, it gives us a chance to clean anything up we need to. Any call to a new state will cause the current state's state exit handler to be called. We'll add that now, to both the default and our new state. Do you think you know what will print for us now? Pause and see if you can figure it out. Okay. Let's try and see. Save, click, test. Yup, you were right. It starts with the default state entry. We touch the cube and get the default touch end. Then default state exit. Then notecard reader state entry. Followed by notecard reader state exit. And finally back to the default state entry. We're ready to do the whole thing again. Now that we know the sequence of events that get executed, we can work around the whole goes back to state entry issue and add our code. This is good. We're well on our way to a good understanding of how states work. Give yourself a pat on the back. You deserve it. Or maybe wine, a big glass of wine. Yeah. So, now we have a good understanding of how states change, and how we can use them. We're going to take our notecard reader script from the last episode and add it to our new state. Don't worry, this is where it gets ridiculous. Ridiculously easy, that is. First thing we're going to do is make a copy of our last episode script. I'll copy it to a new folder and rename it. Just to keep things in order, I'll rename the script also. I've opened up our notecard reader script, as well as the state example we've been working on. I did make a couple of changes from where we left off. I added 2 variables to hold the notecard names and added them at the top. Then I just replaced the text constants with the variable names. This way, we never have to go looking through the code to change a name. It's all right at the top. I'm going to add the state example to the bottom of the notecard readers. I don't think we need all the say debug statements anymore. We're pretty confident we know how to do this. Now, I have all these script lines up at the top. No problem, they can stay right where they are. These functions and variables are in the global space, so they can be accessed by any state. Bonus. What we do have to change, however, is the code in the default state. I'm going to take the data server handler out and put it in our new state. That was easy. Now, we have to move our call that initiates the reading of the note card into our new state. We'll add it to the state entry handler, as we know that's the first thing to get executed on a state change. Perfect. So, we want to read the note card when we touch the cube. In the default state's touch start event, we'll change the name again to touch end as I explained before. Then we change states to the note card reader state. Although it would work right now, we've never left the note card reader state. So it's just looping, waiting for something that will never happen. We need a good way of sending control back to the default state. We can put the command at the end of the endOfNoteCard function, like this. But if you save your code, you'll get an error. The script doesn't want you to change state in the global space. There is somewhat of a hack to fix this. We'll change the way we call the command to change states. Like this. There, no more errors. Is this the best way? No, but it's commonly used. If we had been writing this script from scratch, knowing we were going to use states, we might have structured it a bit differently to prevent this. So, let's clean up and make those changes so we're sure we never have any issue. We're going to copy the contents of the selectNoteCard function and put it into our data server event. Then, we're going to remove the whole selectNoteCard function. Before, we added some code because in the previous method, other code could have been using the data server event also. Now, we know it's only going to be used for note card reading. Another good reason to use states. Now we can execute the state default command, right after our call to endOfNoteCard. And remove it from the endOfNoteCard function. That's it. We're done. Save, click, test. Our output is exactly what we expected. If you're not getting any output, make sure the dudebug variable is set to true. I know it tripped me up when I first did this. So that wasn't so hard now, was it? We added a bit, moved a bit, and fixed a bit. We now have a script that will work seamlessly when we add more code to it. To me, the biggest benefit here was removing the conditionals and code from the default state's data server handler. That handler gets used for a lot of things, so the cleaner we can keep it, the easier it's going to be when we come back to add our next new great idea to our code. It's called the creepy feature creature, and we all suffer from it, even if we don't know it. That does it for this episode. I'll put the code up on the screen in sections so you can easily see and copy it. If you'd rather, you can get the code for this episode, as well as the next two, all in one package from my marketplace store. As I mentioned earlier, we'll be making 3 versions of this code. I do hope you were able to follow along with me. If you have any questions or comments, drop them below or contact me in World. This is the point where I'm supposed to say like and subscribe for more. But I really do think you know that, and if you want to, you'll already have done it, and if you don't want to, saying it is just annoying. I truly do thank you for watching. My name is Dorex Delicioso, and I stand behind all my code. Bye for now.